Midnight in Terre Haute, Indiana. Just steps from the federal death chamber, Lisa Montgomery lay in her cell. Only hours earlier, she'd been brought in under heavy guard, transferred from FMC Carswell, a federal women's prison in Texas. The transfer had been long and tense, yet Lisa showed no sign of exhaustion. She entered her final 24 hours wide awake, not in peace, not in control, a storm of legal chaos swirling around her. The day was January 12th, 2021, weeks past her original execution date. That first one, a month earlier, had been postponed when COVID-19 hit her defense team. Positive tests from her attorneys made it impossible to secure a rightful defense. The court granted a temporary delay, but the rules weren't followed. The legally required 90-day notice was cut to just 35. Her lawyers cried violation of the Federal Death Penalty Act, and now, mere hours before the final reckoning, the Court of Appeals had agreed, issuing a temporary stay. A brief legal win, a thin sliver of hope. But Montgomery sat untouched by it. Her lawyers later called her extremely fragile that night, disconnected, slipping from reality, showing flashes of psychosis. Defense experts pointed to depression, PTSD, borderline personality disorder, claiming her mind had deteriorated so far she could no longer grasp what was happening.
Anybody who is subjected to the death penalty in the United States may not be executed if they are mentally incompetent.
A huge deal in legal terms. A Supreme Court ruling decades earlier made it clear. It is unconstitutional to execute a prisoner who cannot comprehend the punishment or the reason for it. Lead attorney Kelly Henry seized on that opening. Mrs. Montgomery is mentally deteriorating, and we are seeking an opportunity to prove her incompetence. That night, District Judge James Patrick Hanlon stepped in, issuing a temporary halt on mental competency grounds, ruling that Montgomery couldn't be executed without a proper hearing. Another fragile lifeline with only hours left. Lisa Montgomery stayed awake all night, refusing sedatives and quietly scribbling notes to her lawyers and family. Her defense team stayed in touch throughout the night, offering updates and comfort, aware she was slipping further away, hour by hour. Prison staff described her as silent, barely speaking, staring at the walls. The quietest, most withdrawn death watch prisoner they'd seen in years. No protests, no requests, no outbursts. Just a frozen, eerie stillness. And maybe it wasn't just her mental state or the pending stays keeping her awake. Lisa was under 24-hour death watch, her cell lights blazing nonstop, 3 guards rotating shifts outside her cell, logging every move, checking her responsiveness while cameras rolled without pause. Breakfast came and went untouched. Montgomery had reportedly stopped eating entirely as she withdrew even deeper into herself. Silent, distant, almost ghost-like, cut off from the legal storm outside. While her attorneys raced to file last-minute motions, throwing every possible defense onto the table, the Department of Justice pushed back hard, accusing Montgomery's lawyers of sandbagging the government and the courts, calling her mental incompetence claim an egregious ploy to evade a lawful sentence. But this wasn't last-minute theater. As lead attorney Kelly Henry put it, Lisa was broken. She was mentally destroyed by years of abuse and should never have been put on death row. Her behavior, they argued, was the long, untreated fallout of a shattered life, deep scars from trauma dating back to childhood. Yet, no background, no trauma, no diagnosis erases the monstrous brutality of what she did. Back in 2004, Lisa Montgomery drove from Kansas to Missouri, posing as a puppy buyer. Her target, Bobby Jo Stinnett, a young 8 months pregnant dog breeder. What followed was an act of staggering cruelty. Lisa didn't leave with a pet. She left carrying Bobby's unborn child. Bobby was left lifeless. By sheer miracle, the baby girl survived and was reunited with family the next day. Lisa was swiftly captured, charged, and ultimately sentenced to death. My heart goes out to Bobby Jo's loved ones, who've carried this loss ever since. By late morning, the first major domino fell. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled. They overturned the stay from the Court of Appeals, deciding that even if the rules had been bent, it wasn't enough to stop what was already in motion. In her final meaningful hours, Lisa Montgomery was joined by two people who had never left her side: attorney Amy Harwell and spiritual advisor John Francisco. They sat together for hours, talking, praying, sharing quiet moments. John wasn't just a chaplain, he was part of her past. The bus driver who once picked her up for Sunday school, his mother, her childhood teacher. At one point, John pulled out a small, worn photo from his wallet. On the back, Lisa, 7, 2nd grade. It was a photo she had given him as a little girl. He had kept it all this time. He promised her, no matter what happened that night, he would be there, standing by her side. And when the time came, he would sing soft, familiar songs from her childhood. Jesus Loves Me, Amazing Grace, a flicker of light in a dark hour. And then, out of nowhere, a twist. Just an hour before the scheduled 5 p.m. procedure, another court stepped in, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. Their reason? They believed her legal team might have a point, that the government's scheduling had violated the original sentencing order, skipping crucial steps. A hurdle once cleared was suddenly back in place. The official hour arrived. At exactly 5 p.m. on January 12, 2021, Lisa Montgomery was scheduled to die. But no movement came. No guards, no final walk. Every minute that passed pulled Lisa one step closer to the midnight line. The moment when President Donald Trump's window would slam shut, handing the matter over to the incoming Joe Biden administration, which had vowed to halt federal executions. Civil rights advocates called the situation a constitutional disaster waiting to happen. They warned that executing Lisa Montgomery without first holding a competency hearing would push far beyond the bounds of lawful punishment. The tension was razor sharp. Reporters huddled in the freezing night, refreshing news feeds, waiting for any hint of the Supreme Court's decision. Protesters gathered in candlelight vigils, holding signs that read, "Lisa's life matters," and "Stop the execution." Around the world, human rights groups raised their voices, urging mercy. At the Supreme Court, the last legal battle peaked. The Justice Department pushed to clear the path, while Montgomery's lawyers fired off one final round of desperate briefs. The night wore on. The world waited. With just 30 minutes left in the January 12th execution window, Warden T.J. Watson got the final word. The U.S. Supreme Court had denied Lisa Montgomery's last appeals. The process was officially set in motion. Even if the execution crossed past midnight, it would still fall under the January 12th warrant. Co-counsel Sandra Babcock called the legal fight unprecedented. Nearly a dozen judges, appointed by Democrats and Republicans in 4 separate courts, had entered stays of execution for Lisa Montgomery. Still, the government moved relentlessly forward. Outside, white vans pulled away from the media center, shuttling official witnesses to the chamber. Among them, journalists, government officials, legal observers, and the family of Bobby, seeking what they saw as long-awaited closure. At the stroke of midnight, exactly 24 hours after this final countdown began, Lisa Montgomery stepped into the bright clinical execution chamber. Strapped down, heart monitors attached, her glasses stayed on. Her spiritual advisor came as planned, prepared to stand by her side and sing words of comfort. But at the very last moment, prison officials turned him away. "It's too late," a staffer said. Lisa was already secured. No changes allowed. Her attorney later called it a needless indignity. The government stopped at nothing in its zeal to end this damaged and delusional woman. It was a vicious, unlawful, and unnecessary exercise of authoritarian power. Well past midnight, the curtains slid open, revealing Lisa Montgomery to the waiting witnesses. She turned her head slightly, eyes drifting toward the small crowd behind the glass. An Associated Press reporter later described her as momentarily bewildered. Her face mask, a quiet reminder of the COVID era, was gently removed before the warden stepped forward to ask if she had any last words. In a soft, muffled voice, she replied, "No," and closed her eyes tightly. No statement, no protest. The only subtle sign of tension witnesses later recalled was her fingers tapping lightly, rhythmically against the gurney straps. A small heart-shaped tattoo near her thumb moved with each tap. As the chemicals began to flow, Lisa licked her lips, let out a brief, hoarse gasp, and then fell still. One reporter watching summed it up as her midsection throbbed for a moment and then quickly stopped. At exactly 1:31 a.m. Eastern Time, the Bureau of Prisons pronounced Lisa Montgomery dead. She became the first woman executed by the U.S. federal government in nearly 70 years. The 11th execution carried out under the Trump administration in just 6 months. If you want more deep, untold stories, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me. There's always another chapter waiting. See you in the next one.